Welcome, everyone. This is our Sutta contemplation, Sutta study, and we're again blessed to have Ayya joining us. And we will look at the theme of community this week. So we'll start with Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. So I will share the document that has today's suttas. There are a bunch of wonderful suttas. Oh, I didn't bring the book. You can find more that are collected by Bhikkhu Bodhi in his collection called Social and Communal Harmony I think it's from the early Buddhist text or something along those lines. And I think we could spend a month or longer just on this topic, but we'll see what we can cover in just today. So I'll share the screen. Let's see. Make it wider. There we go. This one. Share. Okay. So now you should be seeing the community screen programs this week, and we'll go down to suttas for today. All right. I'm going to have to move it a little closer to me to be able to read it. All right. So definitely will move over so that we include Ayya anytime she wants to comment. So the first, we'll look at two sides of community today. The first, in reverse order from what you often see in the suttas, we'll start with qualities that are really conducive for good community. And then we'll look at the good, the bad, the ugly. And then we'll look at some of the ways that I'm having a hard time speaking this morning. Community becomes disharmonious and what the community can do about that. So a lot to cover. So we'll start with an excerpt from another one of my top favorite suttas, Majjhima Nikaya 31. And this is one of the suttas with the three friends, Anuruddha, Kimbala, and Nandiya, living together. And so we'll read that excerpt about their harmony. I would recommend going and reading the rest of the sutta about their attainments, but today we're going to focus on the community aspect. So here's the sutta. I'll make the text bigger for myself. That'll also help me read it. Oh, much better. Hopefully that's still. There we go. So I have heard. At one time, the Buddha was staying at Natika in the brick house. Now at that time, the venerables Anuruddha, Nandiya, and Kimbala were staying in the Sal forest park of Gosinga. Then, in the late afternoon, the Buddha came out of retreat and went to that park. The park keeper saw the Buddha coming off in the distance and said to him, "Don't come into this park, ascetic. There are three gentlemen staying here whose nature is to desire self-knowledge. Do not disturb them." So a comment here is that this is a like-minded group and they're intent on practice. Their common aim is what is making them most compatible. They were good friends and probably family members, but that, as we know with our friends and family, that doesn't always mean that we can be in harmony and live easily. It's because they really had this direction toward awakening that made them very compatible. So Anuruddha heard the park keeper conversing with the Buddha and said to him, "Don't keep the Buddha out, good park keeper. Our teacher, the Blessed One, has arrived." Then Anuruddha went to Nandya and Kimbala and said to them, "Come forth, venerables, come forth. Our teacher, the Blessed One, has arrived." So there's a celebration. Then Anuruddha, Nandya, and Kimbala came out to greet the Buddha. One received his bowl and robe, one spread out a seat, and one set out water for washing his feet. The Buddha sat on the seat spread out and washed his feet. Those venerables bowed and sat down to one side. So the comment here is that these are common things that receiving a visitor or a visiting senior monastic. So very common in this time period. The exact things that we do may differ from that in our modern culture, but there's still this sense of welcome, making ready, making at ease. So we can look into that as we live within our own communities, whether they be monastic or your family or the wider community. I noticed for example, at the Clear Mountain gathering that we went to last Saturday, there was a greeter. There was somebody at the door to say welcome. This is a warm-hearted quality. So the Buddha said to Anuruddha, "I hope you're keeping well, Anuruddha and friends. I hope you're all right. And I hope you're having no trouble getting alms food. We're keeping well, Blessed One, and we're getting by, and we have no trouble getting alms food." So notice that the Buddha's first just asking about their basic health and well-being before he gets, and the sutta continues beyond where we'll go today, before he really delves into how far have you gotten on the practice and do you need any support? Start with, are you being fed? Are you being housed? And then he moves into, I hope you're living in harmony, appreciating each other without quarreling, blending like milk and water, and regarding each other with kindly eyes. This sentence just touches my heart, and it's been something I've been really conscientious of as far as a community, is to live in harmony, appreciating each other, really focusing on those qualities that can be appreciated in your companions without quarreling, regarding each other with kindly eyes. So this is something that you can actively practice, looking on with kindness. Indeed, sir, we live in harmony like this. But how do you live this way? In this case, sir, I think I'm fortunate, so very fortunate, so gratitude, to live together with spiritual companions such as these. I consistently treat these venerables with kindness by way of body, speech, and mind, both in public and in private. I think, why don't I set aside my own ideas and just go along with these venerables' ideas? And that's what I do. Though we're different in body, sir, we're one in mind, and it seems to me. And the venerables Nandya and Kimbala spoke likewise. And they added, that's how we live in harmony, appreciating each other without quarreling, blending like milk and water, and regarding each other with kindly eyes. So notice here a number of things. One is, that even the senior most is saying, I listen to what my companions' ideas are, and I go along with that. Now, that's not saying that they're going to go along with any misconduct. At this point, we're talking about 3 arahants living together. So, but even now, we can do that. We can listen to all the voices in the community, and the Buddha is actually hearing from all 3 of them, and they are of separate bodies, but of like mind. And this helps with the harmony. But again, we'll see in later suttas, this does not mean that there's a lack of respect for the seniors. This doesn't mean that there's not an honoring of that. So it's just that all of the voices are heard, and there's a sense of harmony in how we do that listening. Good, Anuruddha and friends. But I hope you're living diligently, keen, and resolute. So you can see we're getting closer and closer to the real we're not in monastic life, and I hope you're not in your communities, just to have it easy. We're here to do the keen, resolute, diligent work of awakening, of the deep study that is freeing. And so that purpose-driven nature helps the more trivial things fall aside, which is why it's easy to say something like, sure, we can go along with what you want, because you understand those little details of daily life are not the important things. You want to keep your mind and your heart free and open and ready for the practice that's you're here for. Indeed, sir, we live diligently. But how do you live this way? And so here we're still talking about the communal relations. And we're not going to get into the part of the sutta this week about the more awakening aspects. But here we're talking about the communal relations, how we support each other so that we can support the deepening of practice. This is the reply. In this case, sir, whoever returns first from alms round prepares the seats and puts out the drinking water and the rubbish bin. If there's anything left over, whoever returns eats if they like. Otherwise, they throw it out where there is little that grows or drop it into water that has no living creatures. Then they put away the seats, drinking water and rubbish bin, and sweep the refectory. If someone sees that the pot of water for washing, drinking, or the toilet is empty, they set it up. If he can't do it, he summons another with a wave of his hand, and they set it up, lending each other a hand to lift. But we don't break out into speech for that reason. And every 5 days, we sit together for the whole night and discuss the teachings. That's how we live diligently, keen, and resolute. Good, Anuruddha and friends. Just to note, this was Bhante Sujato's translation. And my comment here, and then I'll open it up for this sutta, is there's a simple routine that they follow. It's not something that you have to think about. You get into the routine that's supportive for your community. And there's still this sense of observation. Where is my help needed? And then they're not making a big deal about it. It's just you go over, you assist, and then you move on. Also noting that they're mostly living in kind of a silence. There's probably speech when necessary, but then they committedly they come together 3 times each moon cycle. So that's about every 5 days is how the translation is putting it. And they talk about the Dhamma. In the Chinese parallels, they also say they might enter noble silence together, the jhana states. So they spend time with each other. So that also keeps the heart warm, and it leads to no lack of understanding or clarity and knowing that you are aligned. Do you have anything to? Not yet. Okay. Kema, welcome. We're on the theme of community, and we've just gone through the community qualities portion of the sutta with Cūḷagosiṅgasutta with Anuruddha, Kimbala, and Nandiya. Did you have any questions or comments at this point? Anyone? Okay. Then we will continue to the next sutta, which is a very lovely one. In the Anguttara Nikaya 612, principles of cordiality. Cordiality is being cordial, being kind, warm-hearted, amiable. It's not a word we use a whole lot in modern society. It's a good word. And I threw in the first paragraph from Ajahn or Thanissaro Bhikkhu's translation, but then the rest will be a repeat of that, and then the rest of the translation will be from Bhante Sujato. Monks, these 6 are conditions that are conducive to amiability. that engender feelings of endearment, engender feelings of respect, leading to a sense of fellowship, a lack of disputes, harmony, and a state of unity. So I just was highlighting, the qualities here that are, if the feeling I mentioned earlier, feelings of respect, feelings of endearment, fellowship, and then lacking in disputes, being in harmony and unity. The translation of that from Bhikkhu Sujato is this: mendicants, these 6 warm-hearted qualities make for fondness and respect, conducing to inclusion, harmony, and unity without quarreling. So you can see different translations of those same Pali words. I didn't put in the Pali this week because there's so many suttas I wanted to touch on. What 6? Firstly, a mendicant consistently treats their spiritual companions with bodily kindness, both in public and in private. This warm-hearted quality makes for fondness and respect, conducing to inclusion, harmony, and unity without quarreling. And I've highlighted the consistently treats with bodily kindness. So your actions are kind. Furthermore, a mendicant consistently treats their spiritual companions with verbal kindness, how you speak. Furthermore, a mendicant consistently treats their spiritual companions with mental kindness, how you think about them. And then notice that these 3 were in the previous sutta when they were talking about. Let me see if I can scroll back. When they were talking about living together here, I consistently treat these venerables with kindness by way of body, speech, and mind. So right there are the first of the 3 of these 6 warm-hearted qualities. I think it's pretty easy for us to be able to associate how we act, speak, and think with how warm-hearted we are. So the next one. Furthermore, a mendicant shares without reservation any material things they've gained by legitimate means, even the food placed in the alms bowl, using them in common with their ethical spiritual companions. This too is a warm-hearted quality. And the key part here for me is the without reservation. That's what truly makes it a warm-hearted quality. I've noticed there are times where I'll make a decision to share, but inside there's a little bit of a pinch. And then there are times where it's like the sharing came so spontaneously and immediately. It was just this warm leap in the heart that says, I want to share. And that's the quality that really makes for good companionship. I don't put down the other learning form either of doing it when it's hard. But really having that warm-hearted quality is the aim we're looking for. The next one. Furthermore, a mendicant lives according to the precepts, sharing with their spiritual companions both in public and in private. Those precepts are intact, impeccable, spotless, and unmarred, liberating, praised by sensible people, not mistaken, and leading to immersion. This too is a warm-hearted quality. And notice that ethical conduct here is a warm-hearted quality. It's not cold and judgmental. It's not stiff. It's the sense of holding the precepts. On 2 Sundays a month, we've got the Sila celebration program here. And that's the quality we're aiming for, is that our ethical practices are with this warm, open, beautiful heart. And that's where it's going to be a gift of safety in the world, and where it holds our practice in such a way, it leads to immersion. So here it's talking about leading to stilling, leading to peacefulness. What's that comment? So, furthermore, a mendicant lives according to the view shared with their spiritual companions, both in public and in private. That view is noble and emancipating and delivers one who practices it into the complete ending of suffering. This warm-hearted quality makes for fondness and respect, conducing to inclusion, harmony, and unity without quarreling. So the common views, those are what defines an organization or a group or a clique or a cult or a government party, a corporation. That if we're running along the track of a particular view, that is what makes that group cohesive and directed. And so here we notice that we're talking about the monastic community with that view that we're aiming toward the ending of suffering. We're aiming toward freedom. So the common view that is wished for within the community that the Buddha is referring to here of monastics is that of ending of suffering. But notice that this is also a warm-hearted quality. And in the next suttas, we're going to look at how there's advice about navigating views, because we're not always going to have perfect right view until we're arahants, and you get a good way at sotapanna, but there's still going to be wavering, as we'll see later. And so there are ways to work in a community when views differ. And the way that, because we're not aiming for cult where there's someone who's saying you must follow this, or you're out because it's my way and very held tightly. We want that view to be aligned with the noble truths and with the ending of suffering. So the sutta ends. These 6 warm-hearted qualities make for fondness and respect, conducing to inclusion, harmony, and unity without quarreling. Before we go into the pairs, do you want to comment on from this sutta?
I have one of this.
Yeah.
If we first consider each other's perspectives, yield to one another, and hold no hatred, I believe we can fulfill all the elements of practice. That's what I have from this sutra.
And that is the real nugget of, it seems like these behaviors may be kind of small, and moment by moment they are, but it makes the heart peaceful and wise. Right? Yeah. Okay. So any questions before we go into the comparison of the kind of community we want to lift up and the kind we don't want to be? All right, we'll keep going. We might make it through these suttas. Okay. There is a whole collection of comparison suttas in the Anguttara Nikaya, the Numbered Discourses. It appears in the twos from section Sutta 42 through 51. And so the whole thing is called the chapter on assemblies. We'll only read the first one so you get the form of it. Please do spend some time, whether you get it out of the book Social and Communal Harmony, the extracts, or if you go to Sutta Central, you can go through. But I've got a nice chart to be able to pick out the points that are in these suttas. You can also listen to these on, I think it's called polyaudio.com. And sometimes I'll just do walking meditation, and when I'm a little bit too agitated to calm down, I'll listen to the suttas as I'm walking until I've stilled enough to be able to take them off and settle the mind. Okay, so 42. There are mendicants, these 2 assemblies. What 2? A shallow assembly and a deep assembly. And what is a shallow assembly? An assembly where the mendicants are restless, insolent, fickle, scurrilous, Today I'm not pronouncing words very well. Loose-tongued, unmindful, lacking situational awareness and immersion, with straying minds and undisciplined faculties. This is called a shallow assembly. And what is a deep assembly? An assembly where the mendicants are not restless, insolent, fickle, scurrilous, or loose-tongued, but have established mindfulness, situational awareness, immersion, unified minds, and restrained faculties. This is called a deep assembly. These are the two assemblies. The better of these two assemblies is the deep assembly. And this is a translation by Bhante Sujato. This is one that I believe at Pasadi Vihara and most monasteries around the world, we continue to work with this all of the time. Now, because whenever we're lacking in the mindfulness, situational awareness, meditation, and our minds are straying, then it's harder on the community, and the kind of community we have is shallow. So even more so out in the world, how much harder it is. We have a commitment in monasteries, and yet still we keep looking, is what we're doing loose, fickle, loose-tongued, not loose, loose-tongued. Do we have mindfulness? So in my summary column, the characteristics that we really want to cultivate for a community are that our members, each one of us taking this on individually and as a community, mindful, clear comprehension, meditative, and restrained. Please stop me at any time if you want to say anything more on any of these. Okay. And then the next sutta, 43, we look at for an assembly where the community members, and I'll go to the positive, live in harmony, appreciating each other without quarreling, blending like milk and water, and regarding each other with kindly eyes. And you can see that this exact thing is what we were getting in the community of Anuruddha, Nandiya, and Kimbala. So the qualities to call out and to cultivate are appreciative and kind. So, and I'm not going to read all of the sutta parts themselves. I'm going to just go to for the community of the worst or of the best. In the best, the seniors are good examples, and the juniors follow the good examples. So having both, it doesn't do well if just the seniors are good examples and the juniors don't follow, or if the seniors are bad examples, then whether the juniors follow or not, it's still not going to be a community that's the best it can be. The next is comparing ignoble assemblies and noble assemblies. And I do want to say that these are focused on, Buddhist practitioners and particularly monastic practitioners. Some of this applies to Buddhist practitioners, lay communities, and some of it would really benefit the world, but they may have a different aim, and we'll see that in a subsequent sutta. So a noble assembly. Noble here, we're talking about the nobility of deeply understanding the Four Noble Truths. We're talking about really Sotapanna, stream entry and above, where that knowing the Four Noble Truths is set in. And so the aim to be a noble assembly, a noble community, is that we understand the Four Noble Truths, and not just on a superficial basis. Okay, here's another one that we'll read. 46, of the dredges or of the cream. So now we've got that analogy of the dredges in the bottom of the kombucha pot or something. The parts of the drink that are, or the soup or the whatever, or is this the cream that you're taking off the top? And what we're looking for is an assembly where the community members make decisions unprejudiced by favoritism, hostility, stupidity, and cowardice. So I just put down unprejudiced, but you can whenever you feel that prejudice in oneself, look to see, am I playing favorites here? Am I hostile to one of the people in my community? Am I just speaking stupidly, not really thinking it through, or am I scared? And then that might help you see where you're holding this prejudice, break it apart, so that it's not a part of your decision making when you're in community. This is really, really important. The next is 47, fancy talk and not questioning. Or are we going to educate ourselves in questioning and not in fancy talk? So here I am talking. So hopefully you're willing to also question. And this is, again, in regards to a Buddhist community where we're studying the words of the Buddha and we look for clarity in that understanding. We're not just rote memorizing and then spouting out something, but we're really trying to bring it into our hearts and practice. And then the other thing is that we're not looking, so it says, that they're not looking at discourses from poets of poetry and fancy words and wanting to spend. I'm not saying that poetry is not helpful, and the Buddha's got poetry in there, but that we want to spend all our time reading sonnets and memorizing those. Now, what we really want to be doing is reading the deep, profound, transcendent teachings of the Buddha. Here it says dealing with emptiness. And once they've memorized those teachings, they question and examine them. Why does it say this? What does this mean? And that's not in a conflictual kind of way. It's to really clarify and understand. So it reveals what is obscure and dispels doubt regarding the many doubtful matters. Number 48 is on different kind of communities, one where they value things of the flesh, not the true teaching, and others where they value the true teaching, not the things of the flesh. Now, you can just take that top part and unpack it in your own community of what does it mean to be a thing of the flesh or not a true teaching. Here, applied to the monastic community, it's basically saying, don't brag about the attainments of yourself or those in your community with the aim of, if I say my companion is an arahant, then that our community will be well supported. Or if my companion says that about me, or whatever, whatever level. Number one, we shouldn't be talking about attainments in that way. And we definitely shouldn't be doing it for the purpose of receiving robes or food or shelter or something. And when we do receive the support, it's to be done in an appropriate way and used in an appropriate way. I'm going to go down to that part of the text. When they get these things, they use them untied, uninfatuated, unattached, seeing the drawbacks and understanding the escape. So I'll tell on myself here. I had a really nice meditation cushion that I've used for years. And last week or the week before, I was trying to multitask on the bus, which probably in hindsight was not a good idea. And I left my beloved meditation cushion on the bus. And so I got off the bus and then I had somewhere else to go. And I went to pick up my cushion to take it with me. And I realized I didn't have it. And what arose in me was a big, oh no, which is okay because, the cushion was supportive and I do need support to be optimally well in sitting. But I couldn't quite let it go. There was just this, and as I would tell it to other people, it would be like, oh, I really was tied to that cushion. Who knows where it is now, but I'm tied to that cushion. And the replacement won't be so dear and wonderful. And so watching that in myself, it's like, oh, what is the proper relationship to the requisites? It's like the Ajahn Chah holding up a mug and saying the mug is already broken, because these things are impermanent. So it's a practice when we do lose something or something breaks, or we get the chance to see, was I infatuated? Was I attached? Did I see the drawbacks, or did I get lost in it, like I did with the case of my cushion? Okay. The next one is 49, unjust and just. And this is an assembly when we go into legal procedures. So this might be a procedure of bringing somebody into the community. It might be a procedure of reprimand. It might be a procedure just to decide where to store things, who's got responsibilities for what. So we do these processes in alignment with the teachings and training of the Buddha. So to kind of know what is the code and how to follow it, but to really make sure that the heart is aligned in the Dhamma, and that we're not just following a legal system for the sake of the legal system. It's rooted in the reason for the community, which is awakening. And I think you can see how these apply out. The next one, it's a repeat of the previous, calling it principled and unprincipled. And then the last one in this section, 51, with unprincipled speech or with principled speech. So we'll read the principled. An assembly where the mendicants take up disciplinary issues, whether legitimate or not. Then they persuade each other or allow themselves to be persuaded, and they convince each other or allow themselves to be convinced. So they're not closed-minded. Since they are able to persuade and convince each other, they let go of their opinions. They don't obstinately stick to that disciplinary issue or insist that this is the only truth. Anything else is futile. I think we see that done in the world a lot, where last week we were talking about opinions. Standing on that opinion is more valuable than getting to the underlying truth, and that is absolutely not what the Buddha teaches. So don't hold fixed views, don't hold false views, but also don't hold fixed views. Be willing. So when the issues arise, they listen to each other and speak rightly, with a willingness and ability to change their opinions. And this, of course, is changing it based on wisdom. So that's the purpose and goal of the community, is to be aligned with wisdom. And so when I see, I've told the story before of having a conversation with another monastic, and I said, well, they, and the other monastic says, who is this they? And it kind of shook me of, wait, what am I basing my view, my opinion on here? And then examining that and saying, you're right, we're making a decision here, and I'm basing it on this amorphous them, those people who are going to think this about us. And I really need to go back to what is the Buddha's teaching. So when we can do that with our companions, it can be really, really valuable. Okay, so that was our lightning round through the two different styles of community and where we want to align. Go back over this column. Last column: mindful, clear comprehension; meditative, restrained; appreciative, kind. Seniors are good examples. Juniors follow the good examples. Understand the Four Noble Truths. Unprejudiced. Study the Buddha's words and look for clarity in understanding. Don't brag about attainment focused on receiving support. And when receiving support, They are appropriate in their use. The process and application of legal system is in alignment with the teaching and training of the Buddha. And when issues arise, they listen to each other, speak rightly, with a willingness and ability to change their opinions. Could you read what you said before? Would that fit here too?
The last one?
Yeah, that. I think it's good sometimes to repeat.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking Ayasutita to repeat the summary that she had from the previous sutta, and you can see how it applies here too. Oh, no, the if we, you just had it up.
This one, when you are able to see through nature.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
That was my last one.
Okay.
When we are able to see the true nature of the human body, we can feel gratitude for being alive, cultivate humility, and gain the wisdom to face and understand our circumstances clearly. This wisdom steadies the mind, allowing us to enjoy a calm and peaceful daily life, and to live in a way that moves us away from the suffering found in everyday existence.
Yeah, I actually meant the one that you did earlier today.
Today.
Yeah. I think this is still really, that one. But I think what you're saying now also is really important because it reminds us that of the one about getting requisites. If we really see the true nature of the body, then we're going to be using the requisites in an appropriate way. And we're not going to have that attachment of, oh, it's my cushion, my beautiful cushion. So thank you for reading that one for me. And then this one. Shall I read it? Okay. If we first consider each other's perspectives, yield to one another and hold no hatred, I believe we can fulfill all the elements of practice. So again, this is exactly, it comes from the sutta before about amiability, but it applies right here in the way that we listen to each other and are open to seeing and changing our opinions and not being attached to that, so that what opens up is actually true nature, true seeing, the Dhamma. Any questions or comments before we jump into some examples of misbehaving monastics? This is just so people have a reality check about, monastics from the time of the Buddha to the present. It works in process. And so that's why we have these governing rules and ways of relating. So, okay. I think also some people may not have strong bandwidth this week to be able to have screens on and talk. So we'll just keep going. All right, I gotta turn back to be able to read it. All right, so this one is in the Numbered Discourses 6.54. I mentioned it, I don't remember if it was on recording or not during the Sila program as well this week. It's called About Dhammika, and Dhammika was monastic in a kind of a large district that had multiple monasteries or practice communities within it of bhikkhus. So at one time, the Buddha was staying near Rajagaha on the Vulture's Peak mountain. Now at that time, Venerable Dhammika was a resident in all 7 monasteries of his native land. And you'll see why he moved from monastery to monastery. There he abused visiting mendicants. He insulted, harmed, attacked, and harassed them. The visiting mendicants who were treated in this way did not stay. They left, abandoning the monastery. So the local lay followers thought to themselves, we've supplied the mendicant sangha with robes, alms food, lodgings, medicines, and supplies for the sick. But the visiting mendicants don't stay. They leave, abandoning the monastery. What is the cause? What is the reason for this? So they investigate. Then the local lay followers thought to themselves, this venerable Dhammika abuses visiting mendicants. He insults, harms, attacks, and harasses them. The visiting mendicants who were treated in this way do not stay, they leave, abandoning the monastery. Why don't we banish Venerable Dhammika? Then the local lay followers went up to Venerable Dhammika and said to him, Sir, please leave this monastery. You've stayed here long enough. And the Venerable Dhammika left and went to another monastery. So the way that you get a monastic to move on often is you stop feeding them. And but if they don't take the hint, or they're in a large, well-supported community, then there might need to be, in this case, it's talking about the lay people asking him to leave, and he does. If he didn't follow that, then the Sangha could actually meet and say, Dhammika, we are going to banish you as a Sangha. So it doesn't look like it went to that level. And Dhammika did leave just when the lay people said so. But the Sangha can back that up and, ask, or they can also ask Dhammika. There's a whole bunch of procedures. They can say, Dhammika, you've really messed up. You need to go apologize to the lay people. And if he does and it gets worked out, great. If he doesn't, then he's banished. So it's not the case that you just have to stay with people who are misbehaving. Okay, so then Venerable Dhammika left and went to another monastery. There he abused the visiting mendicants. He insulted, harmed, attacked, and harassed them. The visiting mendicants were treated in this way. They didn't stay, they left, abandoning the monastery. Then the local lay followers thought to themselves, it's a repeat of the last one. And so they said to Venerable Dhammika, Sir, please leave this monastery. You've stayed here long enough. And he went to yet another monastery in the district. He did exactly the same thing. And so, you will pick up here, then the local lay followers thought to themselves, why don't we banish Venerable Dhammika from all 7 monasteries in our native land? And the local lay followers went up to Venerable Dhammika and said to him, Sir, please leave all 7, they're polite. Please leave all 7 monasteries in our native land. So Venerable Dhammika thought, I've been banished by the local lay followers from all 7 monasteries in my native land. Where am I to go now? And he thought, why don't I go see the Buddha? And maybe he was going to go see the Buddha and hope the Buddha was going to say, oh, those lay followers should take you back. So he goes to see the Buddha. Then Venerable Dhammika took his bowl and robe and set out for Rajagaha. Eventually he came to Rajagaha and the Vulture's Peak. He went up to the Buddha, bowed, sat down to one side, and the Buddha said to him, so, Brahmin Dhammika, where have you come from? Sir, I've been banished by the local lay followers from all 7 monasteries in my native land. So, this is the beginning of the conversation. I'm going to go complain to the Buddha. Enough, Brahmin Dhammika. What's that to you? Now that you've been banished from all those places, you've come to me. So he's obviously not going to, take sides here. He's stating a fact. Your behavior, you've been banished and you've come to me. And hopefully now Dhammika's ready to listen to some wisdom. So the Buddha tells him a story. Once upon a time, some sea merchants set to sail the ocean deeps, taking with them a land-spotting bird. When the ship was out of sight of land, they released the bird. It flew right away to the east, the west, the north, the south, upwards and in-betweens. If it saw land on any side, it went there and it stayed. But if it saw no land on any side, it returned to the ship. In the same way, now that you've been banished from all those places, you have come to me. So the analogy might not be familiar to everyone. So it used to be that, they didn't have such navigation to say, oh, I'm this many fathoms from land. If I head in this direction, I'll get there. What they did was they headed in the direction as best they could. They didn't know exactly how long it was going to take. And so when they were thinking, we should be nearing land now, they had a bird that they'd kept on the ship. And the bird would fly and look for land, because the only thing it can land on is the ship, unless there's land nearby. So if it comes back, then they know they're not yet close to land. But if it doesn't come back, then they can be pretty assured that land is nearby and they're nearing the end of their voyage. So in this way, he's saying that, now you've landed. Please listen. So he goes on with another story. Once upon a time, King Kauravya, that's a different, Kauravya, had a royal banyan tree with 5 trunks called Well Planted. It was shady and lovely. Its canopy spread over 12 leagues, with a network of roots spread for 5 leagues. Its fruit were as large as a rice pot, and they were as sweet as pure wild honey. The king and harem made use of one trunk, the troops another, the people of the town and country another, ascetics and Brahmins another, and beasts and birds another. No one guarded the fruit, yet no one damaged another's fruit. Then a certain person ate as much as he liked of the fruit, broke off a branch, and left. So the deity haunting the royal banyan tree thought, "Oh Lord, how incredible, how amazing, how wicked this person is to eat as much as they like and then break off a branch and leave. Why don't I make sure that the royal banyan tree gives no fruit in the future?" So one person does something mean and wrong, and the royal banyan tree gave no more fruit. Then the king Kauravya went up to Saka, the lord of the gods, and said to him, "Please, good fellow, you should know that the royal banyan tree called Well Planted gives no fruit." Then Saka, using his psychic powers to will that a violent storm come, and it felled and uprooted the royal banyan tree. Then the deity haunting the tree stood to one side, miserable and sad, weeping with a tearful face. Saka went up to that deity and said, "Why, God, are you standing to one side, miserable and sad, weeping with a tearful face?" "Because, my good fellow, a violent storm came and felled and uprooted my home." "Well, did you stand by your tree's duty when the storm came?" "But, my good fellow, how does a tree stand by its duty?" When those who need the tree's roots, bark, leaves, flowers, or fruit take what they need. Yet the deity is not displeased or upset because of this. This is how a tree stands by its duty." And the deity replies, "I was not standing by a tree's duty when the storm came and felled and uprooted my home," because he withhold all the fruit. So he was not standing by the duty. "God, if you were to stand by a tree's duty, your home may be as it was before." I'll stand by a tree's duty. May my home be as it was before." Then Saka, using his psychic power to will that a violent storm come, and it raised up that mighty banyan tree, and the bark and the roots were healed. So then in the story, it's righted. In the same way, Brahmin Dhammika, were you standing by an ascetic's duty when the local lay followers banished you from all 7 of the monasteries in your native land? "But sir, how do I stand by an ascetic's duty?" When someone abuses, annoys, or argues with an ascetic, the ascetic doesn't abuse, annoy, or argue back at them. That's how an ascetic stands by an ascetic's duty. I was not standing by an ascetic's duty when the local lay followers banished me from all 7 of the monasteries in my native land. So he's starting to get a sense of, he wasn't clearly understanding why he was banished. And he's starting to get a sense, oh, it was my behavior that caused me to be banished. And there's a bunch of other things here. I've partly summarized it. Wow, we are going on time. Once upon a time, there was a teacher with good practices who had many hundreds of disciples. He taught them the path to rebirth in the company of divinity. Followers with confidence in the teaching were reborn in the company of divinity. So their aim was a heavenly realm. Same for 5 other teachers. What do you think, Brahmin Dhammika? If someone with malicious intent were to abuse and insult these 6 teachers with their hundreds of followers, would they not create much wickedness? Yes, sir, they would indeed. But someone who abuses and insults a single person accomplished in view with malicious intent creates even more wickedness. Why is that? Brahmin Dhammika, I say that any injury done by those outside of the Buddhist community does not compare with what is done to one's own spiritual companions. So you should train like this. We will have no malicious intent for those who we want to have as our spiritual companions. This goes back to having the warm-hearted qualities from the previous sutta. That is how you should train. One who insults with malicious intent, a single person accomplished in view, a mendicant disciple of the Buddha, that man creates even more wickedness. You shouldn't attack a holy person who has given up the grounds for views. This person is called the 7th of the noble Sangha. That's saying that this person's a stream enterer. They're not free of desire for sensual pleasures, and their faculties are still immature, so they're not arahants. Faith, mindfulness, energy, serenity, and discernment. If you attack such a mendicant, you first hurt yourself. And I'm not going to go on to the last sutta because I want to unpack this just enough before we go. You first hurt yourself. So you're cutting yourself off. It's not about the mendicant. It's not about the monastic that you're abusing. It's about hurting yourself because you're cutting off from the noble truths. You're cutting off from the practice. And then having hurt yourself, you also harm the other. It's harmful both to the monastic you're abusing, but also to the people around you. But if you protect yourself, the other is also protected. So you should protect yourself. An astute person is always uninjured. Gosh, we really came up to the end of time pretty quickly here. This sutta is about Dhammika seeing only after he's been forcibly removed and gotten insight and wisdom from the Buddha what his behavior was doing. And only once Dhammika rectifies that and realizes, oh, I've been hurting myself and I've been hurting those around me, all of the monastics who left because of him and the lay people, and just not a good situation. Only once he can see what his behavior is doing will he be able to be reinstated and be back in community. I'm just going to say we did have one more sutta that really kind of drives it home with that, about when you're accusing, when someone is accused of something, there is a process, comment that of how they can be removed. And as long as their offense wasn't like one of the major ones of like killing a human, then they can be reinstated once that is aligned. But that it's actually proper. It's very strong language in here that throw this person out. The Buddha's not mincing word. If they're corrupt, it's just useless trash. So we need to be really careful that our behaviors aren't trashy. And when they are, then like Dhammika, go investigate, look at it, and only then be reinstated. But this is the other side, that a community does not need to tolerate behaviors that aren't conducive for the practice that we're aiming for. I think this is a valuable message, that how do we build community, and how do we make sure that the people within the community are rightly following the norms that are the aims for that practice in community. So looking towards what is the mission statement in your organization, or what is the goal of a monastic or a Buddhist community. And you can see how that would extrapolate further and further out into the world. So we have hit the top of the hour. We'll skip get rid of the rubbish, sweep away the scraps. They're not ascetics, they just think they are. When you've thrown out those corrupt wishes of bad behavior, dwell in communion, ever mindful, pure with the pure, in harmony, alert, make an end of suffering. So again, you can see right there, end of the sutta, go back to the goal of why you came into community in the first place. And that's where the focus is. Sadhu, sadhu. So I'll stop the sharing of that. Is there anything you'd like to share? I think it's really perfect. So we are over time. Maybe we skip questions on the live stream and go just to paying homage to our teacher, the Buddha. And then I'll end the recording, and I think it's recording. Yes, I'll end the recording, and we can talk further with those on Zoom if wish.
Aram
Sambha Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi.
Swagato
Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami.
Supatipanno
Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sangham Namami. So thank you for joining. Yeah, we didn't hear a lot from Ayasutita today because this is, kind of a read through Suttas program. But please, tomorrow the Clear Mountain bhikkhus are going to interview Ayasutita on their Wednesday night interview program. So welcome to join there and hear more of Ayasutita's wisdom.